Welcome to Arkansas Wildlife. We've got a great show lined up for you this week. We're going to head up to northeast Arkansas's 11-Point River for a status update on the endangered Ozark Hellbender. The Ozark Hellbender was placed on the endangered species list about 7 years ago, and it's found only in the Ozarks of southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. We're going to witness the historic stocking of captive-reared Ozark Hellbenders in Arkansas's portion of the 11-Point River.
Not a bad fish.
But first, we're headed south to Lower White Oak Lake, not too far from Camden, and we're going bass fishing with Jason Olive, Assistant Chief of Fisheries for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. He's going to show us how a recent renovation of the lake is giving it a new lease on life. All that and this week's winner of a hunting and fishing license right after this break.
Arkansas Wildlife is brought to you in part by Academy Sports and Outdoors. For all, for less.
Come on, man. Gotta be one right in there.
That's a common feeling when casting a lure on Lower White Oak Lake. Situated about 15 miles northwest of Camden, Lower White Oak has a new lease on life thanks to the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's renovation of the nearly 60-year-old lake.
When a lake is first built, that's the most fertile it's ever gonna be.
We learned about the phenomenon known as New Lake Effect from Jason Olive, an Assistant Chief of Fisheries for the Game and Fish Commission and an avid bass angler.
You got all this nice cover, newly flooded cover, you have all these nutrients coming out of the soil, and so it's really productive, fish grow really fast, and then you lose that after about 10, 15 years. So renovating lakes gives us an opportunity to set the clock back. The nutrients in the soils, you kind of get a release of nutrients after you reflood the lake. And also while it's down, we're able to go in and do a lot of habitat work with adding woody debris and piling stuff up, making brush piles, various fish attractors. And so the lake fills back up, you have a new influx of nutrients, newly flooded cover again, and it's just like it was when it was first built. So then we get another 10 or 15 years of that boom that we wouldn't have gotten had we not renovated the lake.
It's hard to argue with results like these.
There's one.
There he is.
Not a bad
Nice
fish.
one.
Yeah. Don't go in that stump. Wake up.
Speed crawl?
Yep, speed crawl. I'd say that's one of our original stockers from 2013.
Healthy looking.
Yeah, he looks good.
Broken infrastructure forced Game and Fish to drain the lake in 2012, but it also gave fisheries managers the chance to embark on a 2-year project to improve fishing.
So when we drained this lake in 2012, we had just had about 3 years of drought. And so there were a lot of freshly dead, large hardwood trees along the edge of the lake. And the ones that weren't already dead, pulling the lake down, you know, kind of finished them off, I think. But anyway, we had a lot of timber to work with, and so we had tractors out here and stack these things up. I mean, there's about 100 of them out there, about the size of each of them about the size of a semi-truck.
Large brush piles were just the beginning. Game and Fish teams also used several tons of gravel to create 5 spawning beds ranging from 1,200 to 2,000 square feet in size. Crews also built several large rock piles and more than 24 catfish clubhouses. More than 1,100 tons of lime was applied to boost the lake's fertility. The renovation also has benefited the lake's shoreline habitat.
Before the renovation, there was no cover around the banks on this lake.
Really?
Nothing. I mean, it was just barren. And since then, we had some vegetation come up. I mean, there was a lot of grass carp in here before. And after we drained it, we got rid of the grass carp, so we got some vegetation coming on. Then we cut a lot of trees along the shoreline and hinged them over into the lake. And then some of this other stuff's just floating, you know, stuff that floated up off the lake bottom and was blown up against the bank as the lake was refilling. And so that makes a lot of nice cover too. But yeah, it's a totally different lake than it was before.
The lake was restocked with sport fish, including Florida strain largemouth bass. But perhaps more important, it got an infusion of bait fish.
We stocked a ton of threadfin shad when this thing first started filling back up. And they had really an entire season to spawn without any predators being in there to knock their numbers down. So it really worked out well establishing the forage base.
4 years removed from the renovation, Lower White Oak Lake is showing big promise.
He's down in some stuff. Get in the boat. Well, about the same size as that first one this morning.
They all do look healthy, man. I mean, they're just good looking fish.
Yeah, they are.
You can't turn back the clock, but when it comes to improving a fishery, you can definitely get back closer to the salad days through lake renovation.
Another nice, healthy, fat fish. About the same size as the other two.
Arkansas Wildlife is brought to you in part by Zimmerman Sports Center on South University in Little Rock.
The Ozark Hellbender is one of our largest species of salamanders found in the state.
This aquatic salamander probably won't win any animal beauty contests. It lacks the star power of big Arkansas mammals like the black bear or elk. And since it isn't a species that's sought by hunters and anglers, it's largely unknown to most of the state's sportsmen. But that doesn't mean we can ignore the Ozark Hellbender.
With all species, whether you hunt or fish for them, every species has evolved to serve a function in our ecosystems.
With its small, beady eyes, flattened head and body, and wrinkled folds of slimy skin, the Ozark Hellbender doesn't usually invoke warm and fuzzy feelings. It's speculated that the animal's common name was coined by early settlers who thought the creature looked like it had emerged from the netherworld and was bent on returning there.
Because they are different, most folks don't understand when they bring them in on rod and reel, which they are occasionally taken, like, what is this crazy, ugly-looking animal?
Hellbender conservation faces steep challenges. The Ozark Hellbender only exists in a handful of Ozark streams in southern Missouri and northeastern Arkansas. Populations are in sharp decline, and in October 2011, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service placed the Ozark Hellbender on the federal endangered species list.
Over the years, changes in the habitat and also we think potentially impacts from disease or other factors that we haven't been able to nail down have caused populations of the animals to decline dramatically. Now, I began a long-term monitoring program of our Ozark Hellbender population in the 11 Point River in 2005.
Irwin isn't getting his hands on as many Hellbenders now as he did when the program started. This year, his crew found a total of 29 hellbenders. The average for the biannual survey has been about 40. So why should anyone be concerned about the decline of this unsightly amphibian?
All these species are very important. The more species we have in our ecosystems, the healthier that ecosystem is.
And if that isn't enough to persuade sportsmen to get behind hellbender conservation, consider this.
As the hellbender goes, so goes the quality of your fisheries resource. The habitats that the hellbenders use are the deeper, faster waters with the big rocky structure that the hellbenders hide under. Those rock structures are what things like the smallmouth and walleye and other fishes that are sport fished for utilize for their structure too.
It's a type of habitat that's slowly disappearing.
The river's stream bed is being filled in with a lot of runoff from all the little feeder tributaries. And as more land has been cleared to put into hay fields or for cow pastures, the speed with which water runs off those surrounding hillsides increases dramatically where it used to be a forested habitat. And this effectively smothers the large rocky boulder habitat that the hellbenders need.
As the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's herpetologist, Kelly Irwin is leading the agency's charge to study Ozark hellbenders and restore their populations. He conducts population surveys every other year on the 11-Point River, searching under rocks, collecting data, and doing extensive disease testing.
That's what I contend is scar tissue.
If the crews find hellbenders, they begin an extensive process of collecting various measurements
390.
and taking disease samples.
This one back here, this right rear, Chris.
Each hellbender is scanned for the presence of a previously implanted transponder that can help researchers track individual animals.
038.
If an animal hasn't been caught previously, Irwin inserts a transponder for future tracking.
I actually inject a small capsule into the base of the tail that is then scanned with the reader, which has a unique number on it. We can then come back years later and scan the animal, and we know exactly when and where we last caught it.
Over time, the information can help instruct management decisions.
You don't want to just go out and collect 2 years worth of data and make a conclusion based on that. And this allows us an ability to take these longer term data and make more informed management decisions in directing our conservation efforts.
One relatively new conservation effort is the use of artificial habitat structures, commonly called hellbender huts.
We actually physically take out and put in the river bottom and then weight them down with larger boulders to provide or supplement the existing habitat. We also utilize these boxes to hopefully recover some eggs to be put into the hellbender conservation program at the St. Louis Zoo, which has had great success in the first captive breeding and rearing of Ozark hellbenders.
The St. Louis Zoo's first successful hellbender breeding took place in 2012. The long-term goal is to one day release the animals into the wild to supplement and sustain wild populations. Until then, scientists like Kelly Irwin will continue to search for answers.
I would really hate to see Arkansas continue to lose its natural heritage due to the extinction of a species. Whether you are interested in reptiles, amphibians, birds, or mammals, it all is part of our natural heritage ecosystem process that we need to help conserve collectively. Not just individually as an employee of Game and Fish, but all citizens need to be concerned about this issue. Because without a natural environment, humans will have nothing to survive on.
Arkansas Wildlife is brought to you in part by Arkansas's own PK Grills, maker of the new PK 360, the best and last grill you'll ever buy.
Well, today we're going to go out and stock our first ever batch of captive propagated and reared Ozark hellbenders.
There's 113 total.
Look how orange they are. Oh, totally awesome. Our hope is that with the restocking efforts, we will actually bolster or supplement any existing population in hopes that we might move the needle into the positive side.
So this is the Ozark Hellbenders. An animal has been declining for many, many years, and we're trying to do our best to save this animal right now. So over the past 10 to 12 years, we've been actually captive breeding them, removing eggs from the wild, raising them at the St. Louis Zoo, and this will actually be our first day of the official release of animals back into the 11 Point River on the Arkansas side.
We're here. We have 113 animals.
I'm doing
34 animals here. I think we can do that here.
62-95-197, 56-81-861.
It was a historic moment for Ozark Hellbender conservation. Partners from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and Missouri Department of Conservation released 113 young hellbenders, marking the first introduction of captive-bred Ozark Hellbenders into Arkansas's portion of the 11 Point River, an important step forward in the recovery of this endangered species.
Our work continues here on the 11 Point River population, though, by putting what we call nest boxes into the river, and also hopefully in the fall we check these boxes in the month of October in hopes that we can actually find a clutch of eggs in the boxes to then take to the St. Louis Zoo, which is our collaborator in captive propagation program with the Missouri Department of Conservation.
Well, back in 2002, Missouri Department of Conservation, St. Louis Zoo kind of went into a cooperative agreement to start providing space for hellbenders. And we wanted to try to captively breed them first and foremost. And it actually took us about 8 years before we were successful in 2011 getting our first groups to captively breed. So far, we've released about 3,500 animals into Missouri streams, and we're slowly monitoring those animals. Our first research project showed that based on the size links, if they're about 6 to 8 inches in size, about 50% survival occurs for the first couple of years. So we know some are surviving. So our next major milestone for us in our state and even in Arkansas is to find an animal we raised from an egg released into the wild that actually we can prove that they successfully reproduced. And we're hoping that will occur this year.
Found nowhere else in the world besides southern Missouri and northern Arkansas, these unique salamanders face many obstacles on their road to recovery.
This animal's been declining for a while now. There's not very many left in the wild. And we're trying to figure out the reasons for decline, from diseases, habitat changes, to increased predation.
And that's the $64,000 question as to why our populations of hellbenders have declined. We don't have any hard empirical data to say this one specific cause.
But when we did modeling exercises to look at the long-term stability of the population, we saw that we're probably going to lose this animal in about 10 to 12 years if we didn't do anything. So we invested a lot of resources into the propagation end to basically not only buy us time to learn the reason for decline, but to hopefully, just by putting a sheer number of animals back, they'll start reproducing naturally on their own and the populations will increase.
Time will tell. All we can do is try at this point, and in face of all these other extraneous issues, external issues, we can only try it. This is our last hope. Otherwise, perhaps, yeah, we might be able to maintain them in captivity in perpetuity, but animals will have much of a place to live in the wild if things continue on the course we're on right now, I feel.
So we have to work together, and we've been doing that for years, from searching for eggs, building nest boxes, starting to release animals. I mean, there's no choice to save this animal. We have to work together from a watershed standpoint.
Bringing back the Ozark Hellbender won't be easy, but projects like this provide a glimmer of hope in the dark recesses beneath the surface of the 11 Point River. Arkansas Wildlife presents the Watch and Win Giveaway. During each episode of Arkansas Wildlife, we'll give away an Arkansas resident hunting and fishing license. At the end of this season, we'll be giving away $500 worth of fishing gear with everything you need for outdoor adventures on Arkansas lakes and streams. It's all provided by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Visit the Arkansas Wildlife webpage at arkansaswildlife.com and click on the Watch and Win icon to enter. This week's winner is Tracy Boswell from Waldo. Congratulations and thanks for watching.